Some of the figures in the painting were very emotional for me when I painted them. Especially Todd Beamer, who's over on the left, who stands faded behind his wife and two children, and his wife's hand is on her abdomen because she's pregnant with their third child. He's the one that said, "Let's roll," when he was on the plane and the flight that went down in Pennsylvania, as well as two of the figures over his wife's shoulder. They too, one had a baby daughter who's in the image, faded image with him, and the other one was described by his business partner as being a real patriot. You know, so many of the people who were involved in things like that, their last words were, "Tell my wife and my children I love them." Behind Todd Beamer and his wife are fire department and rescue workers carrying a victim from the ruins. And just above them are some of the people who came out of the ashes, who were seen on the streets of New York. And then just behind them is a Marine Corps flag and a major in the Marine Corps who found the flag in the Pentagon and carried it out. In front of Todd Beamer and his wife, on the ground next to their children, is a rescue worker, obviously exhausted, with his dog, who is obviously exhausted. And if you look, you can see the dog still has his foot pads that they had to put on the dogs because of the heat emanating from the ruins. And right above the dog is a young woman at a candlelight vigil at New York State. Next to her is Senator Daschle carrying his mail because it was anthrax poisoning that came through the mail on some of his staff. Another victim from the flight in Pennsylvania is right behind him, and next to him is Senator Schumer. Next to Senator Schumer is Mayor Rudolph Giuliani and Governor Pataki. Just above Mayor Giuliani, who has a mask over his face as he was striding the streets of New York, are several characters. Two of them were airline employees who were holding hands 1 week to the day and to the very moment that the first plane hit the Trade Center. And then just between those two employees is a Muslim woman, symbolizing, of course, the freedom of religion that we have in this nation and the great freedoms that we have, and that she looks for the same protection under the Constitution that we all do. How grateful we should be that we live in this country and have that which we have, that so many people in the history of the world have longed for. And we have it. And we need to treasure it. And we need to protect it. Next to Governor Pataki, right here, is George Howard, who was a Port Authority police officer who died in the attacks on September 11th. The first attack on the World Trade Center, I think it was 1993, he was the police officer who was given recognition for rescuing an elevator full of children. And he was not on duty the day that the tragedy occurred last year. He got unsure that when he heard that what was happening, he rushed to the Trade Center. George W. Bush, President of the United States, is holding the badge of George Howard in his one hand, and the megaphone that he had when he was at the World Trade Center ruins, giving encouragement and acknowledging the sacrifices of those in the recovery effort. Right above President Bush and George Howard is a girl who was on the cover of Newsweek. And as a ghost image right next to the little girl's hand right here is an airline stewardess who had been a police officer who was on the flight that crashed in Pennsylvania. Then right behind them are firefighters, again carrying a victim from the scene. And to the side between the firefighters and the Marine Corps officer are rescue workers removing a body bag from the ruins. Then above these firefighters is the wife and children of one of the pilots whose plane was crashed into the World Trade Center. And next to them are several of the victims who survived as they were seen leaving the World Trade Center that day. Those who died in trying to rescue people and those who survived were trying to rescue people. Many of the people, when we gave them the reproductions of this in New York, the firefighters and the police officers said that they wondered why they survived while they were working and those next to them didn't. And they have that tremendous sense of loss of their fellow officers, but also this sense of why me and why did they die. So the painting is about real heroes, not the kinds that we have in movies that do fantastic feats, but real heroes who face death and face danger and face tragedy and continue to face it, and do that because of the courage and the moral fiber that is at their very core. It's what they really are. They're real people. They're everyday people just like you and me, who when given the choice between facing the danger or running from it, walked right into it because it was their job and it was their duty and they did it. And you have to know that they were frightened, but they went and did it anyway. Above George W. Bush on the other side is Colin Powell and Diane Sawyer. Right above Diane Sawyer is a rescue worker, and then this group is a family who lost a son in the Pentagon. Moving a little to the right, we come to a couple who were seen at a candlelight vigil in Houston, Texas. It wasn't just New Yorkers who mourned and who prayed and wanted to show their support for not only the victims but for the heroes and everyone else involved in this. In front of them are 3 firefighters who were photographed leaving the ruins of the Trade Center after spending the day in a rescue effort. The grief, the exhaustion, the sorrow, and the determination all were conveyed in their images, and they seemed essential to the painting. And right behind them were individuals seen on the streets of New York who had been applauding those rescue workers as they would enter and leave the ruins. And in this way, they're symbolic of all Americans who wanted to do something and could only lend emotional support, but by doing so helped to bring a greater unity to our nation.